Hey, what's up? John Sonmez here from SimpleProgrammer.com. So I want to talk to you about a subject today that is a recurring theme in my life. It's probably a recurring theme in your life, even if you don't realize it. It's something that affects most of us. I'd say it affects all of us in some way. And some people's lives are crippled by it. And the subject is fear. Today I'm not going to talk about how to overcome or conquer your fears. I've talked about this a little bit. If you're really interested in that, you can see I've done a video on conquering your fears. Maybe we can have a playlist. I think probably what should be in that playlist would be the videos where I specifically showed me conquering my fear. And then I've got a talk I did for Xamarin called 5 Soft Skills Every Software Developer should learn or should know, and that one is actually not about soft skills. Well, I mean, it technically is, but it's really about conquering fear and about being uncomfortable and growing through that. So I highly recommend you check that out. But today I want to talk more about the psychology of fear itself and how you and how myself manifest or think about fear internally and how that manifests in reality and how that can affect us, right? Because I think that it's really difficult to overcome fear when you think about fear in the wrong way. And I struggled with this for a long time. You know, I've conquered a lot of fears in my life, a huge amount of fears. And you guys have seen me. I mean, you've seen me as I've gone and progressed from, even in my videos. I mean, you can tell when I'm out and I'm recording videos on the street and whatnot, that I've changed quite a bit, right? That I've become more bold in my life. I know that I struggled for a long time with both physical fears and social anxiety and those type of fears. I was a very shy person at one point and really just had difficulty, right? And I know a lot of you guys do as well, right? This is one of those themes that I talk about a lot simply because a lot of you guys email me and especially you guys, right? That you're afraid to talk to girls and stuff, and I understand that. I can totally relate to that. You know, it's something that I had to conquer myself and get to the point where, you know, so for me, the standard was that I could just talk to anyone at any time and say whatever I want to and not care. And I'm pretty damn close to that bar. I mean, that's pretty much where I live now, and it's really a wonderful place to live. I'll tell you that. But it's hard. It's hard. It took a lot to get there, and that's what I really want to talk to you about today: is how to get there from a psychological standpoint, which is again not tactical. I told you can watch the video playlist on some of the tactical things, but just about what you might believe about fear and how that can stop you. And I think once you change this mindset, then you kind of know what you have to do, right? And why it's so important. And that's why this video is important for me to make. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about, you know, first of all, let's talk about my misconceptions about fear and how it affected my life. So I had a couple of misconceptions that I think a lot of us have, which is the first one is that fear will eventually go away on its own. Right? So a lot of things that I had fear about in life, I figured that I would eventually outgrow it. I figured that I would eventually not be afraid to fly in an airplane or to go on a roller coaster, or that didn't matter, right? Or I would eventually not be afraid to go and talk to people, that the social anxiety would disappear on its own, or that my fear of failure, right, at one point would disappear on its own. And that doesn't happen. It's false, right? So that's the first thing. And the second misconception I had about fear was that I believed that I could grow in some other way in order to circumvent fear. So if you think about it, if you've got fear here, right, and you're here, if you try and go around it by, you know, and there's different ways, right, different strategies that I would come up with in order to conquer fear without getting in conflict with it, without confronting fear, right? So you can't conquer fear without confronting it, and that's a second myth. And so you could think about this a few different ways, right? Maybe you would think that you could conquer the fear of, let's say, a physical fear like flying or roller coasters or spiders or something like that by reading a bunch of psychology about it, by learning a lot about it. And a lot of people try to do this and really rationalizing away their fear. Doesn't work, okay? For social anxiety, a lot of guys, right, and this was me at one time, thought that, okay, well, what I could do to conquer this fear is that I could go and I could build up confidence in other areas, which may help a little bit, or I could become big. I could lift weights and be really strong, and then I wouldn't even have to talk to women, right? This was one of the things as a younger version of myself that I thought that they would just talk to me, which doesn't happen. Right? Well, okay, so maybe it happens a little bit now, but my point is that in general, it's not going to happen, and it's not going to help. You're not even going to feel better though, even if it did happen, right? Because you haven't conquered the fear, because you know that the fear still exists, right? So these are some of the things that we do to try and not have to confront fear, because confronting fear is really difficult, right? And you've heard the quote, I've said it before, that whole quote of courage is not the lack of fear, it's action in spite of fear. It's taking action in spite of fear. I think that's Nelson Mandela who first said that. I'm sure that throughout history other people have said similar things, but it's such a true statement, right? And I think most people don't really understand this, and I didn't understand this. And I'm a person who's conquered a lot of fear in my life. I'll be honest with you. I was however scared you are of things, I was probably worse, okay? I had just about every fear. And the reason why my fear became so great in my life was because it started out very small, but I believe those two fallacies that I told you about, and because of those things, what ends up happening is if you don't conquer fear, fear grows. It takes more and more of your life. And I actually reached a point where it almost took my life to some degree, as I started to get panic attacks and major anxiety attacks. And it was a bad time in my life, but I had to do something about it, and I figured out the strategy for it. And I've been systematically going through my life. I've got a video playlist on freedom. You can check out that, and I talk about freedom. True freedom is not caring what other people think, and being able to do essentially whatever that you intend to do with your life, right? And there's lots of ways to achieve that, but one of the most important ways is to conquer fear, right? So that you can actually actualize your life. You can be self-actualized and actually do what you intend to do, right? This is key. So anyway, what ended up happening with me was that I did systematically start eliminating these fears, and I did it by confronting them. And so the fallacy that I think a lot of you have, and that I had, like I said, is that you don't have to confront fear, that there's some other way, like I said, that either you can ignore it and it'll go away on its own, or that you can sidestep it in some way by building up some other attribute or something else so that you don't have to actually conquer the fear itself. And what I found, right, and I've been doing this even more, right, every time that I find fear, is that what I actually have to do is just go out and confront the fear. And there's no substitute. There's just no substitute in life. Like, it is going to be uncomfortable. And, and I do a lot of coaching for guys and stuff, and I see this, right? Especially when I'm doing coaching and showing guys how to go and talk to girls that are really afraid of this, right? A lot of guys, come to me specifically for that coaching, and when I go out there in the field and show them how to do it and encourage them to do it, they have huge amounts of fear, and what they really want from me is what I can't give them, which is a solution that doesn't involve just going and doing it, right? And I'm using that as a in this video. I don't want you to think that that's the only thing that I'm talking about here, but it's such a concrete one that I think that a lot of you can relate to, right? It was something that I could relate to for a long time, and it was always a mystery to me how people could possibly conquer this fear. And what it turns out to be is that you just have to go and be uncomfortable, and allow yourself to be uncomfortable and just do it anyway. And your heart will pump, you will feel like dying, and you'll feel like it's the worst thing in the world, but then it'll be over. And when you do that enough times, once you have enough repeated exposure, then the fear will disappear. Now, there's some other things behind this. Again, I told you I wasn't going to give you the exact steps on conquering fear in this video, because I don't want to make it sound like it's like there's no system, that there's no way that can help you to do this more so. But at the heart of it, whatever system anyone ever sells you on conquering fear or tells you about, it's going to come down to the fact that you're going to have to directly confront fear, right? And if you cannot accept this psychology, if you cannot accept this viewpoint into your head, you're never going to conquer fear, and you're never going to eliminate the fears in your life. Like, you may be able to circumvent fear and be able to avoid the fears that you fear in your life by using various strategies or techniques, but they'll always exist, and you'll always feel a little bit less complete of a person and a little bit less capable, as a man, I can say from experience, less of a man, right? That's one thing that you won't be able to get beyond unless you can actually go and confront fear. And so, again, I don't want to prescribe here the steps, but but I want to talk really about that mindset, and I want you to understand that if you cannot accept this, right, you have to accept this truth, because if you don't accept this truth, then you're never going to get further. You're never going to take another step. So, and once you accept this truth, it's kind of beautiful. It's kind of freeing in your life, because you realize that you just, like, you have to do this, right? That there's no other alternative, that you're not making a mistake, that when you go out and you do that thing, right, you get on that airplane, you force yourself to strap yourself into that roller coaster. You you see that girl, and you get up to, and you just walk up and you say something, even if you look like an idiot. When you realize that that's what you're going to have to do, and you know that is the only way, it's sort of freeing. It's sort of freeing because you have a clear path, right? It's better to know that a path is hard, right, and that it's going to have a lot of obstacles in it. But you have to go down that path. That's the only way to get to where you're going. It's better to know that than to be looking at multiple paths, and some of them are scarier than others, and not know which way to go. So I'm telling you right now that that's the first step. And so how can you accept this psychology? How can you deal with this? How can you really internalize this? Because maybe you believe what I'm saying, and you're like, yeah, okay, I understand that, John, but I can't do it. I can't have the courage that's required in order for me to do this. And so what I would say about that, every moment that you don't conquer fear is wasted time, right? I've wasted plenty of years of my life. And when I say wasted, it's not like they're a total waste, but what I mean is that I didn't get the highest opportunity out of those years that I could have. And I missed a lot of opportunities because I thought that, someday, in fact, that was the name of the video, it's called Someday. And I figured that someday my life would change. Someday, something would just happen by itself. And that's a big fallacy that we have just in life in general, is that we think that something is going to happen without us taking action. Okay, so when you realize that, and you realize your life is ticking down, and there's every day that you're living with this fear, and that it's controlling your life and what you do, that you're missing opportunities. And some of these are opportunities that are once in a lifetime opportunities. I mean, some of these things are going to be things that you're never going to get that opportunity again. And your life could change in such a drastic way if you didn't miss this opportunity. So you don't want to let any of those moments go by. So it's not worth that, right? So whatever price you'd have to pay to not lose those opportunities, isn't it worth paying that price, right? And that's what I came to eventually, was I realized in my life that I needed to pay that price. Like, it was a heavy burden, it was a heavy price, but it was one that I needed to pay. The second thing about that I would say, to convince you of this, that you need to actually do this, is that not only are you missing opportunities, but your own feelings about yourself will change drastically, right? When you are able to conquer your fears, you're confident, your self-esteem, really. See, because you have confidence when you know that you can do things, but your self-esteem is always damaged by you not living up to your potential. Anytime that you are not operating at the maximum that you can, and you know that there's deficiencies that you're avoiding, painful spots in your life that you're not dealing with, your self-esteem is going to take a hit, because it knows the truth about yourself, right? This is another thing. And then the third thing I'll tell you about this, and then I'm probably going to wrap up this video because my arm is getting tired. But the third thing I'll say is that most of the time, right? Not all the time, but almost all the time, most of the time, whatever it is that you're fearing, that it usually has an unbounded upside of good and a very small downside, right? Most of the fears that we have are completely harmless to us, and they can't actually harm us, but we just have these fears, right? Now, I'm not saying that there's not fears that could harm you. There are definitely fears that could harm you of what you're afraid of, but most of them, okay? And these are things like flying on an airplane. I'll keep on using the same examples, but a roller coaster, talking to a girl, okay? Those things, they're not gonna... what bad can happen, right? In most cases, there's so little bad that can happen. And when you understand that, and you realize that the thing that you're conquering is not... Because sometimes I think when you're trying to conquer fear and you're trying to confront a fear, what you feel like you're going up against is that worst consequence that you imagine in your head, right? But that's not what you're fighting. What you're fighting is just the action of just doing it, of just being able to be uncomfortable. So the worst thing that you're going to experience, and 90% of the fears that you're facing, is feeling uncomfortable for some short amount of time. And I'll give you one fourth bonus thing here, okay? Which is this. The more that you do this, the easier it becomes. Because what you'll build, again, remember I said you can't circumvent fear, okay? You can't go around it, okay? And you can't ignore it, right? And you can't, it's not gonna go away on its own, but you can build courage. You can actually build courage. And when you build courage, this is the interesting thing, because if you haven't built courage, I'll tell you how it works, okay? When you build courage, what ends up happening is you still feel the fear when you confront a new fear, right? Now you do conquer fears, and I'll give you some good news here, is that once you really, really conquer fear, once you really lay it into the ground, it is gone, okay? It is gone, okay? So there is hope there, but when you start conquering fears and you relentlessly conquer your fears, what ends up happening is you actually build that courage muscle, and you still feel the fear in its full effect and intensity, but you know from experience, you're confident in your courage. You know from experience that this feeling, these butterflies in your stomach, this sick feeling, that it's natural, it's normal, and that there's something good on the other side of it. And so you'll actually be able to go and do this more. So once you develop that strength, that courage, it's going to benefit you in multiple ways in your life. And this is something that I've personally experienced, and it's really, really helped me, right? Because the first fears to conquer were the hardest. But as I started to conquer those fears, and I started to realize that, you know what, I've been here before. I've felt this sick feeling in my stomach, and I've felt like the world is going to end and everything is so bad, and I've pushed through it before. And so I know I can do it again. It's like, I just went for a run today, and I pushed myself really hard. I know some of you are going to laugh, but I was running like under 9-minute miles for 10 miles, which is a hard run for me. I mean, I'm 230 pounds, okay? So when I'm running, I'm at mile 4 and it hurts. It hurts, but I know I can do this, right? I know I've done this before, and the more times that I go and I run through that pain, and I feel that pain for an hour and a half, good hour and a half of that run, the more times that it's not that it gets easier, it doesn't get easier. It never gets easier, okay? Pain never gets easier, fear never gets easier, but I have the knowledge and the experience of knowing that I can make it through this uncomfortable feeling. I can make it through this, and so I do it. And so it doesn't become easier, but as many wise men before me have said, you become stronger. And that's what I want for you. This is why I make this channel. This is why I make these videos. It's because I want you to become stronger, because I want you to experience what life is like on the other side. Once you start to become stronger, and once you start to do this and change your life in that way, so many opportunities open to you. Your self-esteem changes to such a high degree, and it's almost that no one can knock you down. It's almost that nothing else that's happening in the external world can hurt you, because you have this real joy in your life of knowing of how strong that you've become, because you haven't let these things control your life. You are in more control of your life. So I want that for you. I want that for everyone here. And it's really important to me. Like I said, this was something that I wish I knew. I wish someone was giving the videos I'm making for you guys. Some of you don't understand them. That's fine. But I wish someone was making them for me, honestly, a long time ago in my life, because I could have lived in a much better place. And my life wasn't bad. It wasn't horrible. But I could have lived in a much better place. I mean, I do now, but every moment is precious. You don't know how much time you have. Life is short. So why let more of that disappear, right? Why not live to your maximum potential as quickly as you can, so that you can do powerful things with your life? You can feel that joy of knowing. I mean, it's so good to wake. I can't even tell you the feeling of waking up in the morning and knowing that, wow, like I conquered my fears. Like I'm not afraid to do things, and I'm really living my life to very close to the highest potential, right? And I know that I can get there, and then I know that I have a clear path there, right? It's such a powerful experience. So, all right, that's all I got for you today. This video was a lot longer than I expected, but if you have, I'll have a request for you. So if you are struggling with fears, I want you to honestly tell me here, right? And this may be your fear itself, is just leaving a comment. I know a lot of you watch videos and you don't leave comments. It's fine, it's cool, but I want you to at least get over this fear by confronting it. And I want you to tell me in the comments, honestly, what is your fear, right? And, I wouldn't say that no one's going to make fun of you. I'm going to say that I'm not going to make fun of you. But maybe some people will in the comments. I hope that they don't, but, people are dicks. But so what? Don't let that stop you. Let's overcome one fear right now. So tell me what your fears are in the comments, honestly, right? As embarrassing as they are, it's fine. Mine are more embarrassing than yours, I promise you, at one point in my life. But that's how you get over them, is you have to acknowledge them. So leave a comment below and tell me. And let me know also when you tell me about your fear, if you're interested in learning more about, should I do more on this subject? Because I think this is a really important subject, but I want to get a temperature gauge from you guys. All right, that's all I got. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. Go ahead and click the subscribe button if you haven't already, and click the bell to make sure that you don't miss any videos, especially my upcoming fear videos, which I'm sure that I'll be doing. I'll talk to you next time. Take care.